Professor Benjamin Davis. I want to make sure I get your title right and everything. We have having a few technical difficulties, but you are the CBS professor of Harold Dow, visiting professor in the School of Journalism and Graphic Communications at Florida A&M University, and you've covered events like this throughout your career as a journalist. My question for you specifically, though, is there have been information. I watched it till about 4 or 5 a.m. last night, and there was a guy that with no clothes on that was arrested. Then that video disappeared from CNN. There was a number of people that they said that were hurt and injured, and that number changed 2 to 3 times. There were so many things that went on. In your expertise as a journalist, let's take a look at this. How is it affecting the psyche of America, and why are the journalism people that are reporting the story jumping the gun so quickly?
One reason they're jumping the gun is because they know they're under pressure to get the information out first and to get it right. But they still think about getting it out first. It comes down to dollars and cents. It comes down to retaining audiences. It comes down to having a brand that says you get it first and you get it right. And sometimes you're going to gamble on the first, and then you'll lose on the right part of it. That's what the public is seeing, but at the same time, the public is learning that they can't always trust traditional media, and they'll realize that there are other sources that they can go to for information, especially the internet. For instance, last night, had you gone to police scanners in Massachusetts or police scanners in Newton or some city in the nearby town, nearby, you would have been able to hear what the police were doing yourself. Or you could have gone to a trusted Twitter source, starting with the local police department's Twitter source. And the public, they should be skeptical of the media all the time. And now they're starting to realize there are other sources other than the mainstream media to get immediate news and dependable news.
How vital then is social media, is this kind of communication? I know you're saying that that's where you can get raw information, but on the same side of that, I watched a story a few days ago where a young man who was a high school track star was, someone on the internet said, hey, I think I saw him walking around with a backpack. And this guy is a high school senior, never been in any trouble, and of course they jumped to say that maybe someone who did this was a Muslim separatist or something like that. So because this guy had a quote-unquote Arabic name, he was receiving people coming to his doorstep, and it was because somebody put an anonymous thing out on the internet.
Yeah, the mainstream media, especially the networks, they've made such mistakes often. And you can think of the case of a CNN correspondent, I believe it was yesterday, he identified one of the suspects as being someone who was dark-skinned. Yeah. And I wouldn't dare hypothesize that he's racist, because he is not. But sometimes we make racist mistakes, and we regret them. And that type of mistake, it's usually, the problem goes to who is on your staff. Do you have a dark-skinned person on your staff in the control room that can whisper in your ear? No, maybe we shouldn't say that. I'll tell you why later. And if you say it, it's usually an indication that your staff needs to be diversified behind the camera. Do you have anyone of Arabic descent on your staff? These types of problems can easily be avoided if you have a diverse staff. So in a sense, it does come down to diversity. I wouldn't say in any sense insensitivity. It's just, do you have a diverse staff that can handle a diverse country?
Interesting. Dr. Davis, thank you so much for spending time with us. And you got to come back.
I will, and it's not Dr. Right?
Well, Professor.
Regular old professor.
You got to come back.
I'll be glad to.
I enjoyed you. Thank you so much. Now, even though Professor Davis says that newsroom diversity is so important, one of the things that we look at for our attention is why there was a suspect in last night's bombing who was asked to strip naked before he was arrested. Check this out.
The police had, from multitudes of agencies, all had their weapons drawn, pointing at a vehicle that we could not see from our vantage point. They were screaming for somebody to put his hands up, to get out of the car. At some point he did do that, because then we could tell that the officers were relaxing. We still couldn't see the car or the suspect. Then at some point, they brought him from his vehicle to a police car. He was completely naked. He'd been, during the confrontation, I did hear him, and I believe you may be able to hear this on the tape we shot. They were ordering him to remove all his clothes, including his underwear. It was clear.
CNN, you must note, has since removed that video strip of that strip search, and it wasn't even strip search. They just took all the man's clothes off, and it took the naked man in custody. And to talk to us is Max Paris, our number 2. Casanova isn't with this, but you're our other science officer. Yes. Casanova's not here, but on a science note, what kind of incendiary devices? This guy supposedly only had on, he didn't have on a vest or a thobe or any of those other huge bulky clothing items. What kind of things could he have hidden on his person? And right now I gotta say that there's breaking news, if we'll move, in Watertown right now. There have been shots fired. What we know right now is there's shots that have been fired right now in Boston, in Watertown. We don't have any specific details as to what's happening, but right now, again, in Watertown, shots have been fired. We'll come back to you with the latest as we're getting it in. Max, what kind of incendiary devices might you be able to put on your person that could allow you to blow something up where the police would say, take all of your clothes off?
Well, Rockman, you remember a couple of years ago, there was the underwear bomber that tried to detonate a bomb on an airplane and actually had a device in his underwear. And so, and then we also had the shoe bomber beforehand. That's why we take our shoes off. And it's a little much to ask to be able for us to take off our underwear at an airport. But it is possible to get devices in there. And so that's why now, or that's one of the reasons why now we have the full body scanners that TSA uses when we pass through the airport. So it is possible, and especially in this very hectic time, this week has been insane for Boston, and nationally speaking it has as well. Some of our liberties are being taken away, and I'm sure this is going to be reanalyzed later on, but, you know, Boston PD is going to jump the gun in certain cases, and in that situation, they are going to want to remove
all of the clothes.
You have to think of it from their perspective. You have to have this balance of what is right in this time of desperate measures and what is a little out of
What's
place.
safe.
And this is going to be reanalyzed, I'm sure, down the way, and we might be seeing some class action lawsuits a little bit down the line. But,
very interesting. But there are chemicals, I guess, that you can hide on your person that could blow something up, and it's almost scary to think about.
It's been a scary week.
Thank you so much. Max Paris, our science officer. We'll keep you updated on the breaking news from Boston. Right now, again, it has been reported that there have been shots fired in the Watertown neighborhood. We're not sure exactly who fired the shots, but we will get that information and get it back to you. Was it necessary for the police to strip this guy down naked that we just talked about in Boston? Don't forget, tweet us at Bounce TV Tally. And if you're tagging about Boston, make sure you hashtag it. We'll read your tweets later in the show. We'll be right back. An 80-year-old grandmother from Missouri is booked for first-degree murder. This is the real Medea. Police say this 75-year-old, her 75-year-old husband was found dead in their home from blunt force trauma. Now, according to court documents, his wife told officers that she was tired of him verbally abusing her. She was tired of him taking her clothes, so she hit him with a bat. Now, she's being held on a $250,000 bond. I cannot, wow. It's an interesting thing. Now, onto that update on the plant explosion in Texas. Authorities confirmed that there were 12 fatalities in Wednesday's explosion incident that happened just outside of Waco. Now, you can still see the smoking rubble. It also damaged and destroyed dozens of houses. And you can see the damage inside the home. The explosion blew out windows and even caused the roof to collapse in this house. Now, authorities are still classifying this as a search and rescue mission. They're searching for survivors in the neighborhoods near the incident. Now, even though with the blast, it happened 48 hours ago, authorities say that the chance of finding anyone alive is starting to shrink. Well, just ahead on Bounce News at 7, you can tweet your thoughts tonight. You can say it, post it, however you do. We want to know what you're thinking. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Bounce News at 7. Today we're talking money, and money is so important in all of our lives. You know, the housing market is getting better and better, but the question is, what's more economical, buying or renting? And when looking for a home, it's important that you figure out what's best for you. Now, the New York Times has said in a report that it's actually more advantageous for you to buy a home than to rent one. Now, with us on tonight, if you're going to stay in one place for a significant amount of time, it's cheaper to buy a home. You'll owe property taxes and the credits for homeowners every year. Rent goes up every time you renew the lease. But when you deal with mortgages, there are still some other things that you just can't take. Now, the real benefits of buying versus renting truly depend on the area that you live in. And knowing those areas and the amount of time you'll be there determines whether you should rent or buy. Now, there are some online calculators to see which is right for you. We'll put those links up on our website, bouncenews.tv. Now, right now on the phone, we've got licensed real estate broker Nan Burton. Nan, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Rockman. Thank you very much. And I'm just a realtor, not the broker.
You're not a broker. Okay, you're a realtor. I want to make sure I got your title right, so we know what information you can give us. Tell us, Nan. It's a question. Is it better to rent or buy?
Well, there are many factors to be considered in this question. I think the consensus always has been that it's better or cheaper to buy rather than to rent. And I'll give you a little example. In 1989, the median U.S. house price was $94,000, rate of 10%, and the payment was $825. In 2012, the median U.S. house price was $176,000, and the interest rate at 3.4%, so the payment is at $625 a month. Now you can see that the market has become cheaper in all this time. But one of the biggest obstacles, which, you know, if you're going to buy a house, then you need to have all the upfront monies. You have to have taxes, insurance, the maintenance, closing costs, down payment. The down payment is typically what holds back most renters. But it's easier for a lot of people in this economic state to come up with a security deposit and a monthly rent. And a lot of times things such as cable, lawn care, pest control are included. So actually it's a personal decision whether to rent or buy, and I think there are good circumstances
for both of those. Yeah.
But also I would say that property management, which is what I do, is a great way to find the rentals. And we always like to make sure that everybody has a pleasant experience if we can, and that we do both commercial and residential properties.
So rent with option to buy. What about that? There have been like some I've seen, assumable no qualifier, where you can assume the mortgage, or renting, and part of the money from your monthly rent goes toward your down payment on the home. What do you think about deals like those?
First of all, I don't think they do mortgage assumptions anymore. I could be wrong, but I don't think they do that. However, you would need to find an owner that was willing to hold the mortgage for you if the house was paid for. We work hand in hand with Coldwell Banker, Hartung Noplin, and they do a lot of that lease to own. So that would be a great place to check.
Interesting. Now, again, I know you said it depends on the circumstances, it depends on where you are, it depends on the area. But if you look at the dollars that are put into it, and you say that the dollars that you're investing into something, and you can possibly have a return on the investment if you buy, could I get you to say that buying is better?
You know, you'd have to run the numbers.
Okay. Well, and again, I guess it depends on where you are. Now, what we're going to do is make sure that you have links. Nan, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, Rockman, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, this evening. We'll make sure that you have Nan's website. And if you're trying to decide what's better, renting or buying, we'll post those links to both her website as well as some of those mortgage and rental calculators so you can see what works for you. That'll be on our site, bouncenews.tv. Just ahead, Your Best Life, we'll take a look at some education professionals around the area who are honored for their service. We'll be right back. You're watching Bounce News at 7. I'm Rockman Johnson, and you've been saying it and posting it. So let's take a look at social media and see just what you guys are talking about. I'm over on Twitter right now, and I'm looking at a tweet here from @HistRV. It's a historical records. It says, who is this guy? When? Why? Where was he arrested? Naked man, Boston bombing. And it gives the link via YouTube to this guy being arrested. And the other one says, Boston police detained a man earlier, made him strip naked in the streets, and then questioned and released him. Humiliating, pound taking no chances. And unfortunately, that first tweet I was looking at another site. I'm looking at our Twitter, my Twitter. I mean, these messages are coming fast and furious. The next tweet comes from @Tom Sheffield. Pound Boston guy stripped naked live on CNN, cuffed and released without charge. Sure he'll laugh about it later. #bad night. Very interesting. I mean, this is just completely, the story just unfolds and unfolds. And what we know, if you have something to say, don't forget, get on Twitter or Facebook, but get that information in because we want to know what you're talking about so we can keep you up on what's happening. Again, we do know that shots have been fired in the Watertown neighborhood. It has been, news sources are reporting that Police cars, authorities are rushing throughout the area, not sure whether they're Massachusetts State Police, which some outlets say it is. Some say it's the FBI, but we are looking into it, and we'll keep you up to date. And, of course, all the latest will be on our website, bouncenews.tv. We'll be right back with more Bounce News at 7. Don't move. Breaking news, the FBI is believed to have cornered Boston bomb suspect on a boat parked behind the trailer of a Watertown residential backyard. That's on the FBI website, as well as CNN saying that, that a Boston bomb suspect is on a boat parked on a trailer at the back of a Watertown residential backyard. We'll keep you up to date on the latest as we have it. Now, in tonight's Your Best Life, it's all about living your best life and helping others to live a wonderful life. And there are some great local educators who are doing just that every day. Last night, the Leon County Schools honored its own with some special awards at the Leon County Civic Center. Now, Robert Ash receives the School-Related Employee of the Year for his work in transportation, in the Transportation Department. Rebecca Char was honored as Teacher of the Year for her innovative work in cross-curricular activities. And Christopher Small was honored as Educator of the Year. He's a principal for simply being a leader. And his staff says, he said that he won the award because of a teacher.
When asked by several of my teachers this year, what made the difference in your life? How did you overcome your circumstances to become a first-generation college student and a young administrator? My reply to them was simple: teachers and mentors.
Which shows you why teachers and mentorship is so important. It means stepping out of yourself and going into helping others. And when I talked to Dr. Small earlier today, he said that it is important that not just teachers, but people in the community support educators as well. So that's another key to living your best life. Now, we'll leave the speeches for you in their entirety on our website. And we'd like to say congratulations to all three of those honorees, the Teacher of the Year, the Educator of the Year, as well as the School-Related Employee of the Year, because it's because of you guys that students are able to achieve and achieve well. And I know they're doing that in their FCAT tests this month. Now, let's take another look at the Boston bombing and see what the latest is. Again, right now, going to our social media site, Twitter, what we're learning is the FBI is, again, nothing has happened at this point, but there's police coverage all around. They're in the back of a Watertown residential backyard on CNN. We'll leave all the information for you on our website at bouncenews.tv. Thanks so much for spending your evening with us. Have a good night and good weekend.